Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I have another what's for dinner video for you guys today. This is the second what's for dinner video I've ever done, and I'm having a lot of fun filming these and sharing them, so I hope you guys enjoy them too. I have a lot of fun recipes today, and let's get right into it. So this first night we had a pulled pork chili. I used leftover pulled pork, and I also made a cornbread to go with it. I started with a yellow onion chopped and a yellow bell pepper chopped. I did saute the veggies a little bit with about a spoonful of minced garlic. I find that sauteing the veggies when I'm making a soup or a stew really does bring out the flavor. And I don't do it every time, but it does help with the flavor if I have time and feel like getting one extra dish dirty. So my pulled pork is already in there. Like I said, that was left over from a roast from a previous day. I am just adding in my veggies. Then I am going to add a jar of home canned diced tomatoes, as well as 2 cups of chicken broth, 2 tablespoons of paprika, and 3 tablespoons of chili powder. And of course, salt and pepper. Okay, moving on to the cornbread. I used 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of cornmeal, and 1 cup of sugar. I did use white cornmeal for this. That's what I had on hand, and it turned out really good, so I'll probably use that from now on, but that's why my cornmeal looks kind of like flour. So moving on, I'm adding a cup of milk with 1 egg, which I am kind of whisking, beating in with the milk. I always try to use as few bowls and containers as possible. And I almost forgot the baking powder. That would have been bad. I would love to know what your favorite cornbread recipe is, or if you are the kind of person that likes more of a savory cornbread. My mother-in-law actually puts like a can of corn in her cornbread, and that's really good when she makes it, but I guess I just like the classic plain version with lots of sugar. And editing this video reminds me how good this cornbread was, and I think I really need to make cornbread again sometime very soon. And there's the completed meal, chili and cornbread, super delicious. Alright, the next recipe is for Greek turkey burgers. Don't those look like fun? So I'm starting with some spinach. You could use frozen, or you could use fresh and just steam it for a little bit. This is frozen from the garden in the spring, and I'm just chopping it up so that it's going to mix in with the other ingredients really well. And then I'm also chopping up some sun-dried tomatoes, and also a half of a red onion chopped. And I'm just wrapping the spinach in paper towel and squeezing out the juice. If you have cheesecloth, that would work too. I couldn't find mine. I think the recipe did say to do this because there's just a lot of water, and that will make your burgers difficult to stay together, so that is the purpose of that step. Then we're just mixing all those ingredients together, getting them broken up and distributed, and then I'm going to add 1 pound of ground turkey. After those ingredients are all mixed up, we're going to add about 1/4 cup of feta cheese, 2 eggs, and about a half a cup of breadcrumbs. And if you noticed, I only added 1 egg there, but I go back and add another egg in a minute. So I don't remember what I was thinking then, if I just forgot or whatever. But I did end up adding 2 eggs total. Also some minced garlic if you saw that. For a vegetable, I am just going to roast some asparagus. So I chopped off the ends, rinsed them, and I'm drizzling them with olive oil and garlic salt. I also had some fries to use up in the freezer, figured they'd go well with the burgers, and now it's time to make the yogurt sauce that goes on top of the burgers. This sauce is extremely simple. It is just Greek yogurt, minced garlic, dill, lemon juice, and salt. Not only was this sauce super easy to make, but it really brought the burgers up a level and it really brought out that Greek flavoring. And then while I'm going to cook the burgers, I will cover this and keep it refrigerated. And when it's time to form the burgers, just do so as you would any other burger. They held their shape really well when they cooked, so that was really nice. And I ended up cooking these in olive oil in a saucepan on about medium heat. They were really easy to cook, and I do not know why this clip is upside down. I apologize for that, but it'll go back to normal really soon. And you know me, I gotta have my buns toasted a little bit for my burgers, so I will put these in just as soon as I take the fries out. I just put the buns in for like a few minutes just to get them warm and a little toasty. And then I'm getting the yogurt sauce ready for serving, and they also recommended that you serve this with some sliced red onion and some sliced cucumber, so that's what I did. I was probably the only one in the family who liked either of those on their burgers, so I probably won't serve it this way next time, but I was thinking that this would be a really nice thing for lunch, so I might meal prep some lunches, and I definitely would recommend eating these with the red onion and cucumber if those are things that you like. And the recipe did recommend to put some of the sauce on the buns and serve the burgers like that. I decided to, assemble the burgers. You could definitely just let everyone assemble their own, but I thought it was way easier to just do it for everybody. And then I just arranged them on the platter with the fries and put on the asparagus on the side and served it like that. This was a really good dinner. Like I said, I probably will make this more for myself for lunch. I don't think the family loved it as much as I did, but it was really good and it was really fun recipe to experiment with. Next up, I tried Swedish meatballs. I've never made Swedish meatballs before. So to start off, I am taking 3 pieces of bread and slicing them up and then cubing them. Then I am going to put them in a bowl and pour 1 cup of milk over the cubed bread and allow that milk to really soak in. So you kind of let it sit for a couple minutes, and then I gave it a stir just to make sure that was all soaked in. Alright, so I have a yellow onion diced, and I'm just going to heat up some oil on my pan here and saute that onion. While that is sauteing, I am going to mix the spices together. So I have a mix of salt, pepper, allspice, and nutmeg. Very interesting seasonings, not seasonings I'm used to working with when it comes to especially like meat, Now I'm just adding the spices to the breadcrumb mixture along with the sauteed onions and 1 egg. Once that's all mixed up, I am going to add the ground beef. Okay, mixing that together was a lot of work, and now it is time to form them into meatballs. I decided to just lay them all out on some wax paper to keep the whole process moving along smoothly, and then we are going to saute them. I chose to do so in a mix of olive oil and butter. When it's time to flip these, I just had to be really careful so the meatballs didn't fall apart. I just kind of used a spoon and flipped them, but after they started to get browned on a couple sides, they stuck together a lot easier. And eventually I did cover the pan to make sure that they cooked all the way through. Because I made such a big recipe, 2 whole pounds of ground beef, I did have to do a second batch of the meatballs. Okay, now it's time to make the sauce for the meatballs. I started with 1/4 cup of butter, 1/4 cup of flour. You want to whisk that all together and then let it bubble for a couple of minutes just to let the flour kind of cook. Then it's time to add the beef broth. And mixing as you go, you also add some heavy cream and Worcestershire sauce. Now would be the time to add some salt and pepper if you wish as well. When the sauce is bubbling, time to add the meatballs. Add all of the meatballs, stir them so they're all kind of covered by the sauce, and then let those sit and cook for a few minutes. After I covered the sauce and let it kind of bubble, it did thicken up quite a bit. I just served this with some buttered macaroni noodles. You could serve it with any kind of noodles or whatever you wanted with it. And this was a hit with the family as well. It's a really nice hearty meal. Alright, this next dinner was a total improv on my part. I had some marinated pork chops that I needed to use up, and I decided to come up with this recipe for cheesy potatoes with marinated pork. I thought nothing goes with the marinated pork quite like potatoes and cheese. So this is a really easy, simple recipe using pretty much pantry items. So these marinated pork chops was actually a freezer meal that I had cooked the night before, so I marinated the pork chops in a plastic bag, put them in the freezer so that I could pull them out. I pulled them out the night that I ended up cooking them. We didn't end up eating them, and so I saved them, obviously, and decided to come up with this recipe to use up the pork this night. I will link the video where I did a bunch of freezer meal preps where I did prep these pork chops because they did come out very, very delicious. So all I'm doing here is just shredding it up so that they're in like bite-sized pieces. And the next thing I'm going to do is prepare my hash brown potatoes. I just used frozen hash browns, kept it really, really easy, like I said. They did kind of freeze into a solid block, so I did have to break them apart. That was probably the most work that this recipe required, honestly. So I'm going to grease this pan here, and then I'm going to transfer the frozen potatoes into the pan so that I can use the bowl to mix the sauce for the potatoes. I combined 1 can cream of chicken soup with 1 cup sour cream, half a cup of milk, some garlic powder, onion powder, salt, and pepper. After that's all mixed together, I added about 1 cup to 2 cups of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. And as you can see, I just poured this over the potatoes. Oh, I did salt the potatoes because they're potatoes. They can never have too much salt, practically. They can, but it's always a good idea to add a little extra salt. So I did salt these first, and then I spread the cheese mixture on top, and that really worked really well. Like the potatoes were covered. It was delicious. It was perfect. Now I'm just adding the meat on top, and again, like I said, it worked really well to do it that way. It allowed the flavors of the meat and the cheese to kind of be separate without having the whole thing mixed together, if that makes sense. So I definitely am glad that I did it that way. Now I wanted to show this because I did bake this for a while, and after it was mostly baked and I had maybe like 10 minutes left or so, I did uncover it. I didn't want to uncover it too long because then the top would get burned. And there it is. Isn't it beautiful? And I do have to tell you that my 10-year-old Lila said this was the best thing I've ever made, and she requested it for lunch the next day. Okay, next up we have a ham and bean soup. Really easy crock pot soup for you guys, and this one turned out really delicious as well. It was also fun because I got to use at least two vegetables from my garden. So these carrots are from the garden. Carrots keep a really long time, thankfully, because these have been in my fridge for probably a month or two, but they're still good. They taste way better than grocery store carrots, actually. I also chopped up an onion, and then I tossed those into the crock pot. This is the ham I used. It was pre-cooked and pre-sliced, but I do think you have to reheat it before you cook it. Anyways, I ended up using maybe a little over half of this piece of ham, and I did chop it up more into bite-sized pieces and toss that in the crock pot as well. Then to the crock pot, I'm adding a jar of diced tomatoes, some chicken broth, some cannellini beans, Italian seasoning, and salt and pepper. Then I did venture into the garden and pick some kale. This video was pre-filmed, so I didn't pick this in like the dead of winter, but it was like, I think early December maybe when I filmed this. Anyways, kale lasts really well in the cold, so it actually gets sweeter. So I picked this from the garden and added that into the soup, and that really brought it to another level. It was really delicious. Then I just covered the soup and let it cook for probably like 4 or 5 hours, just till the veggies got kind of soft. And that is the last meal for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching as usual. Let me know which meal was your favorite, and I will talk to you again very soon. Bye!